Ladies and gentlemen, now let me stop playing. So we're back again, guys. So this sit there. Now I got to turn off all my alarms. Let me turn off my alarms. Mm-hmm. Technical glitches get on my nerves. All right, let's try this again. All right, so I had an alarm pop up and it always stops my camera. So we're here today. Today is actually our kind of like our off week, but my girl needed to make some switches and we made it happen for this week. Um, excuse me. So y'all guys, excuse me, I'm kind of getting over a little cough, but we're going to be talking about something a little bit different than we've been speaking on over the last couple of weeks. We've been deep in entrepreneurship, various different levels of entrepreneurship, some financial services, financial literacy, life insurance, et cetera, et cetera. But today's guest is she's more so in a mental health space, but doing some non-traditional work in that space and really just making a difference in her own lane. One of the things that she and I really started to connect on was the fact that we're doing things different than your typical person who comes from our academic background. So I'm not going to waste too much more time. I'm going to bring her before you. Niketa Pèchan, how is it going?
Hey, what's up, Brian? Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I
Well, it's my
just,
pleasure. My pleasure. So I'm going to be quiet for a bit. People get tired of hearing my voice. They hear my voice every week. This is the first time that my audience, at least, has had the pleasure to hear your voice on this program, Legacy Dialogues, where I bring people from around the world to speak on their expertise and the things that they're doing to impact the world so people can get some ideas on how they themselves as well can figure out their path today and start to create their legacy. So,
mm.
without further ado, kind of give us a little synopsis. Who is Niketa? Where you from? What do you do? What impact on the world are you trying to make? Why should we want to know you? Talk to us.
So, hi again. I'm so honored to be in front of Brian's community. I'm Nikita, and I am a Jamaican American. And I say that because that is such a huge part of my identity as a Jamaican American, a second generation immigrant. And so I grew up, my early experiences have been in Jamaica and Miami, and I currently now live in Mississippi. And I have been a therapist for over 12 years. And I think some of my closest friends would describe me as like a entrepreneurial spirit because I have so many passions. I am very passionate about the diaspora, but I have so many different I think I see so many different problems within the diaspora, and me particularly talking about the Caribbean and African diaspora, and I see so many problems, so many issues, and I kind of want to be all. And people will consider me to be a connector, a curator. So I cultivate spaces. And so when you're talking about being kind of different in this in the mental health space, I realize that my strength is, curating the spaces where people feel safe, people are connected to culture, people are connected to their heritage and their stories and their narrative. So I am a therapist by trade, but on a deeper level, I'm a curator of experience.
Well, I love that. And that, just that word in and of itself, a curator. So lots of people, and we're gonna break it down a couple of terms. We're gonna break down for our audience. First, keeping it a buck until probably about 8 years or so ago, I had never heard the word diaspora. I didn't know what it was when I first heard it. I'm like, what is this? Like, what does this even mean? Is this like some Malcolm X stuff that they're trying to bring into today's world? Like, what is this? And then I slowly but surely learned. But if you can kind of break that down for the audience, what does it mean to be, or what does the diaspora mean to you?
Yeah. So the diaspora is the almost a displacement of people from the original land. So when I talk about the diaspora, I talk about the Caribbean diaspora because a lot of us have migrated from like the islands to the US to the UK to the Canada. So our diaspora, meaning the people that came from the original land and has gone out into the world, is so huge. Like I think I saw something that said that if you took the entire Jamaican diaspora and try to fit us back in Jamaica, we would not fit. That's how big that's how big we are. And it's just so amazing and crazy. And also if you want to look at it, like Black people, we are a part of the African diaspora because although it's been hundreds and hundreds of years since we have been taken and displaced and been all around the world, we still come from Africa. And so it's really just about looking at people who have been misplaced or displaced from their original land and are in other places.
Got it, got it, got it. Nice breakdown. Now, why does it mean so much to you to identify as
Mm.
Jamaican American? Like, what is the cultural significance for you when it comes to your Jamaican ancestry?
Mhm. So I was born in the US, but when I say this to people, they see it in a different light. But I was born in the US before I was the age of 1. My mom sent me to Jamaica to live with my grandparents, my uncles, till I was about 6 years old. So I actually spent my formative years, the years of attachment in Jamaica. So I think, as a therapist, I've kind of analyzed it myself. I think I'm really attached to Jamaica because that is my home from where I grew up in that formative years. And also, I mean, my grandparents raised me, my uncles raised me. That's where I first learned, right? That's where I went to school. So that has left an impression on me, I think, just from an attachment standpoint. But then when I came to the US, I came to Miami. And if anyone knows about, I know you know about Miami because you have a lot of events there. But if anyone knows about Miami, Miami is literally a melting pot of culture. And the Caribbean culture there is so, 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 so vast. And so when I migrated, it was an adjustment, but I still had the culture there, and I even got connected with other cultures. Like one of the closest cultures that I have is the Haitian culture. Like I would say some stuff in Haitian Creole, and then people will be still shocked to this day that I am not really Haitian. They're like, "You're not Haitian? You say that so well," and I'm like, "Cause I grew up since I was 7 years old around Haitian Americans, just like me." And so I think growing up in Miami, we've all, like the Caribbean diaspora, kids who were born to Caribbean born parents, I don't know what it was, but we have such a strong pride in our heritage. I don't know what it is, I don't know why, but we have such a strong pride. I mean, Haitian Flag Day, you see the Haitian flags go up. Like, we're just so prideful. Have so much pride in our heritage. I don't know why. I just love Jamaica, and Jamaica is like legendary. Come on, like let's think about it. The tiniest one of the tiniest islands has impacted the entire world. Bob Marley, Usain Bolt, and we can go on, Marcus Garvey. So I'm very proud of that too because I come from a small island that is recognized all across the world.
Now, I love that. And it's one of the things that so living in Miami, I was able to experience a lot of that, mix of culture. Before even going to Miami, my undergraduate years here at USM, I worked in the international studies, international programs office. So
Mm,
I started to immerse myself with different cultures at a very young age, so to say, in my adult years. And it just gave me such a respect all across the world. But one of the things that you see oftentimes here in the US is people try to assimilate. They try to leave their culture behind, and I have to fit in if I want to move up, if I want to be
right,
accepted, if I want to be, one that earns the promotion, so on and so forth. I have to fit in. So, what
right.
I know you mentioned, and for those of us who understand human behavior, human development, we understand those formative years and how they develop the core
Mhm.
of the rest of your existence, pretty much. So, what are some of the things that you have intentionally done to make sure that you keep your Jamaican roots?
Mm. That's a good question because I actually migrated from Miami to Mississippi and it's day and night. It's day and night.
Mhm.
And I think some folks in Mississippi get offended when I say certain things, but it's really just like it's like it's a culture shock coming here. And so I never when I lived in Miami, I never had to fight for my heritage. I never had to. It was given, it was normal. In a sense, I did because my family, I feel like this happens across the board to a lot of like second generation Caribbean people. Like our families would, like you said, assimilate. Like they want to assimilate. So they almost want to distance us from that. Like, you're American. I came here and I had you here. You're American. You better live up to that American dream. And a lot of us, second generation and beyond Caribbean kids, right? We hold on to that. And I didn't really feel that deep of a fight beyond my actual Jamaican mother wanting me to assimilate so that I can do well and be successful. I didn't really feel that until I came to Mississippi. I mean, when I was in Miami and I said I'm Jamaican, it was no question. Like, a lot of people understood and knew, oh yeah, your mom's Jamaican, you were born here. Yeah, that's all of us. But here, I've gotten into so many arguments with people. They're like, "Well, you were born here. How are you Jamaican?" And I'm like, "Would you say that to a Chinese person? Like a Chinese person who was born here that speaks Mandarin, you would not question them. But why do you question me?" And so here I've had to be intentional with like the music I listen to with my kids because now they're third generation, right? So I listen to a lot of reggae. I have like pictures of Bob Marley. Like, I'll do the reggae song. Like, who is this, guys? Like, quiz them. So those are the certain certain things. I would talk to them in patois, which is the Jamaican dialect. And so I would do that. My mom was laughing at me. She was like, "You talk more patois than me," and I'm like, "Yes, because I have to. You didn't have to do that. You were trying to force me out of my accent while I'm trying to force my kids back into it." So those are some things that I do to keep my kid because it's already a part of me. You know, my kids are the ones that I have to intentionally keep them grounded.
Yeah, and as a parent, especially when you have multicultural, multiracial,
Yeah,
whatever type of children, you have to be intentional about that, or they're going to grow up being somewhat lost when it comes to a certain portion of who they are.
right.
They're going to have identity crisis. So one of the things that with my kids, their mom is Bolivian. So Spanish actually was the first language that both of my kids heard on a regular basis. My son was
Right.
born here in Mississippi in Hattiesburg. His mom's mom, so his maternal grandmother, flew in, and she pretty much was like the babysitter while we were in school, and she spoke nothing but Spanish to him. So years
Amazing.
later, when we were in Miami, when my daughter was born, she was hanging out with her mom and her aunt on a regular basis, and all they spoke was Spanish with one another. We come
Hmm.
back to Mississippi, and very few of their friends speak
Yeah.
Spanish. So it's like when you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
And it's sad to me because I went to school for years. I started in high school studying Spanish so that I could become proficient in it. Ended up getting a degree in Spanish, but it's like they don't really care too much about it. Matter of fact,
Mm.
my son is one of the top kids in his class. Excuse me, one of the top kids in his class. He's graduating a year early,
Mm.
and he doesn't qualify to go straight to a university or Southern Miss at least because he never took a foreign language class. And I'm like, seriously, dude? Like, you grew up
Oh.
with multiple languages, and in part, we as parents should have been more on top of it. But he was just excelling in everything.
Mm.
But I say that to say, we as parents, we have to be intentional on helping our kids keep certain pieces of their culture, especially when it comes to today's day. Now, we're gonna not gonna get deep into politics or anything, but when it comes to today's day, with people wanting to strip certain aspects of your identity from you and
Mhm.
make you align with certain identities, you have to be intentional on what you do at home, because if you don't, the world will take it from you.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
speaking on that, when it comes to the professional world, Kind of give us a little bit of background on your academic track and kind of what transferred or translated from you going from what you first started studying, eventually getting into your profession, and then having that focus on really wanting to work in that cultural, culturally relevant space.
Yeah, so I mean, ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to help people. I think a lot of us be wanting to help people. And I wanted to be a neonatologist, like the newborn doctor. Then I wanted to be a trauma surgeon. So I know I like to be like in action. But then when I got to college, I realized this is getting real. And I wanted to be a paramedic in my so I went to college in Miami. So I started at Miami Dade College and I went and I wanted to be a paramedic. But then in Miami, I don't know about everywhere else, like to be a paramedic, you also have to be a firefighter. And I was like, I'm not running into any buildings. And so I said, immediately I have to change that. And so I decided I wanted to do nursing. And then like all of us Caribbean people, we either a doctor, lawyer, nurse. Anyway, so then I realized I'm not waiting a whole year to get into the nursing program. What else can I do? And then I stumbled across social work. And I was like, what is this? I can help people with this? Okay, cool. And then so I got into the bachelor's social work program. And then as I started learning more, I was like, oh, I could be a therapist. And I love helping people. Let me be a therapist. And so that's what I did. I got my BSW and then I got my MSW and I became a LCSW, licensed clinical social worker. And my track record as far as what I did in my career has been really working first with people in recovery. And so seeing people at their lowest, seeing people disconnected from who they are and the beautiful narrative of who they are and seeing them attached to this other narrative. And yeah, my work was in recovery work. And then when I came to Mississippi, that kind of shifted. I started working, not really, it just shifted away from substance use and recovery. And so I started doing more therapy. I worked for the federal government, and then I realized the pandemic hit, and realized I'm getting anxious in this role. So what I've realized is that at a certain point, when you're working traditionally as a social worker therapist, you're gonna get burned out if you're not careful, if you're not creative, if you're not really leaning into your strengths and just following, like you said, following what you're supposed to do, which most of us social workers are taught. You go to the VA and you get your private practice, and that is it. And that's what I did. And I realized, no, this ain't it. No, no, no. I want to do more. No, what is this? And so I did a lot of pivoting. I mean, I pivoted.
Hmm.
I am the queen of pivot. I pivoted to doula work because I became a mom and I realized, oh my God, Mississippi, is really last place in the maternal health. So I still do some like consulting work in the maternal health sector. But what I did some soul searching and realized that culture is a part of me. But I've always been taught indirectly that culture is not it. Like it doesn't really matter where you're born, or it doesn't really matter. And so I was always taught to kind of like push my culture to the side and elevate beyond that. I always thought that it wasn't a real thing for you to care about. Patois is not even a real language. Like why would you speak that? And so do I have had to reconnect with the culture that it almost it almost feels like I was been pushing out of. And so I realized that our culture is dope. Like, what are we talking about? People travel all over the world to go to Jamaica, eat Jamaican food, dance our music. People are paying money for this. And so I struggled with that because I was like, what am I gonna do? How does social work therapy fit in with me doing culture? And so one of the things I've done here in Mississippi, I became really, really homesick. I mean, depressed. And I just decided in partnership with a hometown hero here in Jackson, his name is Stephen Brown, aka Fifth Child. I partner with him. He has this art center, and I decided I was going to do a monthly dance experience called Diaspora. And I started that 2 years ago. And the idea was for me to teach the dance because people are intimidated when they're just like not, and so teach a dance and then have like the music playing and like hoping to build like a party scene. But then in the back of my head, I'm like, how does this work with social work? Like, why? And so I've always kind of held myself back because I felt like the direction I'm wanting to go is not It's not the traditional way. Like, you're supposed to be the
And
private practice owner and this and that, but that's just not the path I'm going to,
yeah,
you know?
and like when I see you leaning and speaking about the things that you're passionate about, I just want to like push you and say, go get it. Because that's the thing. When I was working in, so just a little bit of background, which you know a bit
Mhm.
about. So I was living in Miami from 2012 to 2015, and I was working in child welfare. I was a foster parent support specialist. I saw kids aging out of the system, not having the life skills necessary to make a successful transition, ending up in prison, ending up in the graveyard, ending up having kids that came into the system. I wanted to make a difference in that space. And I kind of had one foot in the entrepreneurship space and the social work space. Oh, look like we lost her. We're gonna hold tight. Okay, let's see. We got her back. There we go.
I'm back. Sorry. I don't know.
Yeah, so I was in this social work space. They were saying we don't have the money to fund the programs for these kids to make a more successful transition. And I saw these people in the entrepreneurial space making a whole bunch of
Mhm.
money, and a lot of them not doing anything sensible with it. So I'm like, how can I marry these two?
Mhm.
And I
Right.
started to do a little bit of research. I had some ideas, and budget cuts came through again at the agency, and they were like, "No, we can't do any of that." I stuck at the agency a couple of more years, and then I came to Southern Miss to work on my
Mm.
master's in social work. And my whole idea was I need to find a way to create revenue streams to go towards mentorship programs for that transitional age adolescent. So that became my focus, and I started to excel and excel and excel and excel, and I really hit my my peak right after I finished my master's, and I was working on my doctorate, speaking all over the place, developing programs, just doing what I was loving doing. But I rewind and I'm back in the social work classes, and I'm that social worker or social work student that's talking about business models in
Yeah.
social work. And they're like, what are you talking about? You're so weird. Like, why are you even in this program?
Right.
And I'm like, there's a space for me in this program, but it's just not the traditional route that
Mhm.
most people, assume. And me sticking to my guns eventually carved out my
Mhm.
lane. And some of
Right.
those same people that were turning their nose up to me, that were like,
Mhm.
you're weird, hit me up like a year or so later. Hey, are you
Right.
hiring? Like, I
That's
see
how it
what you're
is.
doing. I see what you're doing, and like, I need a job. And I'm like, well, I tried to told you back in
I
the
tried
day,
to
but
tell
you ain't
you.
want to listen. And that's the thing. So when I saw some of the work that you was doing, when you started to connect with me on social media, and I'm looking at what you're doing, I'm like, yes, I love that she is going a non-traditional route. She's doing what she wants to do. And as it pertains to, being so culturally focused, that becomes your unique value proposition. That becomes
Mhm.
why specific people are going to come directly to you instead of to, any old generic, any old social worker. No, I want her because she understands my culture. She understands my background. She understands
Mhm.
motherhood. So it really helps you be and stand out the way that you're supposed to stand out. Now,
Mhm.
now taking that and scaling it is a whole different story. Now, that's where it gets difficult. So,
Okay.
kind of
I've had to leave a lot of. I think that's why I pivoted a lot. Like, 2024 was really the year of pivoting, because I
mhm.
realized, to be honest with you, in the doula space, the way that we are doing doula work is not profitable. It's just not. Now, you can be creative. I'm not gonna list all the creative. You can do so many different things to be creative in scaling it. But I think I had fell into um this idea of trading time for money, trading time for money. Like, that's what a lot of us social work and therapists, we believe. Oh, I could just charge 150 an hour, and if I see 20 clients a week, that's a good amount of money. No, because then you have a cap. You have a time cap. You can't
Exactly.
see 100 people a week, when you're talking about real money. So that's why I had to pivot a lot, because I realized some of the stuff, it wasn't scalable in that way, you know.
Yeah, so we're gonna sit here for a little bit. We're gonna kind of marinate for a little bit because you said something Now we're talking mental health, social work, and then you said dot dot dot. That's not real money. Now, a lot of people in the social work, especially, like you're not supposed to be doing it for the money. You're supposed to.
Yeah. So.
I got bills to pay. I have a life that I desire to live. Just
Right.
because I have a heart to help people, don't mean I don't want to live well. So
Hmm.
what do you do? Is there any like internal conflict when it comes to I want to earn well while at the
Hmm.
same time doing good? Like how do you balance those two?
I don't have that internal conflict anymore at
I
all.
love it.
You know why? Because I had that internal conflict and I was broke and tired and wondering where I'm like, no, for what? Like, I'm noticing in the digital industry, we are able to access way more people now. We can access way more people. I mean, people do digital products. Like you can do so many different things. And so we have access to more people because of the digital world. If we are social workers or helping professionals who are professional and experts, if we don't step up and scale, we're not going to have room to do good work. Burnout is just not a place to live. And I don't have that internal struggle anymore because I'm thinking about, do I want my daughter or my son to feel this way? It's not going to make sense for them to feel. I want them to be another level than me. I
Mm-hmm.
want them to start and be like, oh yeah, at 18 I already had my own property. What do you mean? What are
Mm,
you talking about? Like I want my kids right now at 7 and 5 already we talking about investments. Like
mm,
that was not something I would ever consider at 7 years old. My daughter, she already saved. I remember she saved, how much she saved? She saved like $100 at one time. And I was like, girl, I need to give you my money to save because you're saving money. Like, and so like I'm introducing them to the aspect of money and not making them feel guilty around money. And so I think a lot of us need to hear, and I'm sure you talk about it, Brian, in your workshops. And oh, are we back?
you get.
Um, so I think you might talk about it a lot in your workshops and stuff about like the money story, the story that we have, you know. I think I lost Brian, but I don't know who's on. I don't know if I'm on or he's on.
Yeah, you keep going. I had a
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, money story. I don't have that internal conflict anymore because why? The more money I have, the more I can help people, you know.
all right. Am I still frozen on your side?
You are frozen.
So I'm just gonna talk Frozen for a little bit until I
Yeah.
turn it back over to you. So
No problem.
I had a phone call come through. I thought I put my do not disturb on. It seemed like people always want to call when you're in the middle of something.
Mhm.
Anyways, yes, like you said, I'm doing my theatrical hands and like getting all jubilant over here. You said the things that so many people need to understand when it
Mhm.
comes to our fields. You should want to position the next generation to be better.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think back to when I was a kid, and this was my mindset before going into the social work field. When I used to see, like at the health department, these social workers, I'm like, ew, why would anybody want to work like that type of job? That's like those fake professionals that don't make no money and look like they hate their life at work.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I don't want to, like, who would want to be that?
Not
But
me.
then when I learned that social work could be such a vast field, I utilized it to do so much more than your traditional social work. I use social work skills as an entrepreneur. I
Mhm.
use social work skills as a financial behavior
Mhm.
coach. There's
Mhm.
so much that you can do with it, and especially like you mentioned in this digital age, I've got products, I've got
Mhm.
ebooks, I've got
Mhm.
videos and courses attached to them to where I just put it out there, it'll generate money for me. People will actually reach out to me once they got a hold of it. Hey, I love
Yeah.
this, but I need help navigating it.
Mhm.
So, what are some of the things that you've been able to capitalize on when it comes to this digital world, when it comes to just the entrepreneurial landscape to kind of
Mhm.
incorporate what you do at a
Mhm.
more scalable approach, so to speak?
hmm So one of the things, a few of the things that okay, we're still live. A few of the things that I have worked on, it has been number one, like memberships, right? So, being able to have this subscription model where people are, and this, I think this model can be good if you have an audience already, or if you're already like coaching, if you're wanting to coach or whatever, and you're wanting to have access to a lot more people. um, so like a subscription base membership is really cool. It's a
Hmm.
lot of work, so I had to pivot out of that. It's a lot of work. It's not for me right now. Also, ebooks. Ebooks are so simple. I feel like every one of us social workers should have an ebook because I feel like we all have a different thing. I think a lot of people in the social work industry, they're afraid of this digital product type thing because they feel like it's saturated. But if I'm talking about, if I create an ebook for Caribbean daughters, right, who need to heal from perfectionism, that's going to be a different kind of ebook than, you having an ebook on financial behavior and whoever, right? So we all buy books. I have books everywhere. Like, people are buying that stuff. And I have seen, literally seen money get lost. Like I literally see how a missed opportunity, is just money that's going to someone else when it can go to you. You know,
Hmm.
um, so ebooks, courses is huge. I am now like leveraging more in the content creation kind of. I'm kind of delving into that because I realized I have been doing that. I used to be a photographer and I used to do brand partnerships. I didn't even realize that's what I was doing.
Wow.
And I was doing it and I was really good at that. But again, that narrative that a lot of us, probably Caribbean people, a lot of us social workers kind of fall into is like it's not a real job, right? A real job is somebody's payroll or whatever. And so I'm circling back into the content creation brand partnership kind of industry. A way that I'm working on bridging like social work, therapy, mental health, and culture is through travel. And so I'm building my travel brand and to be able to help people kind of rediscover themselves, reconnect with themselves. And everybody loves to travel, and the reason why people travel is often to escape their life. And so working with people to help build a life that they don't escape from by giving them access to live more, that is something that I've been working on. Brian keeps coming in and out of this thing, but it's okay. And we're going for a short break because Brian has has left has left the chat. There he
Yeah.
is.
Well, yeah, my camera just doesn't want to go off of that frame, but
Mhm,
yes, like the ebooks, the courses, all the things that you mentioned are things that we can do. But man, that subscription model, like that's where it's at. I and I don't know who all is watching, but think about it. Think about the subscriptions that you use or that you
mhm,
have, but you're not even super consistent in using.
mhm,
So, when it comes to working with people on a subscription model, you really put the accountability into their hands while
mhm.
you're still receiving your compensation.
Right.
Now, it can become heavy lifting if they're the type of person that is very consistent with, hey, okay, I did this, now I need help with that. I did that. I've got one person like that. And excuse me, I had to kind of tweak the subscription for them because like they were taking mass advantage of it, but they weren't
Mm,
really doing the work. It was more so they're always having questions but not implementing, complaints
mm,
but not implementing, excuses but not
mm.
implementing. So that's one of the things that I had to put different wording into the contract before I would agree to go in with
Right.
certain individuals. So just to kind of keep the flow moving, tell us what are your primary right now. What are your primary areas that you're working in, your primary projects you're working on right now? What are some things
Yeah.
that currently take your time and attention?
So currently, I'm working on building a community of women who are interested in travel, interested in advanced experiences. I'm also building my social media portfolio for brand deals, UGC. So I'm getting into the UGC industry where, these days brands are definitely taking advantage of a user perspective. It's so funny. This is so weird. This is funny. I actually studied UX design, so this is user experience. I'm like,
Nice.
I'm just like I don't know if I'm a multi-potentialite or something, but I love learning about different things. And so I even that, like if you think of social work and user experience, like those two together is a force. Like because we know about human behavior, we like it's just another level. So anyway, I studied UX, but not really delving into that. But I'm taking my social work therapy, mental health experience, and like the UX, understanding UX design and how the psychology of people and how consumers buy and things of that nature, and applying that to content creation,
Mm.
where businesses, man, you know how many businesses in Mississippi that I've seen, like their content, I'm just like, wow, like you guys really aren't taking advantage of like the updated content strategies. And so that is something that I'm nerdy about a little bit. So I'm taking those things and applying that to brands.
I made that face because Mississippi ain't taking advantage of a lot of stuff. So, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm born and raised here, so I kind of feel like I have the right to criticize the state.
Okay.
I mean, anybody really has the right, but it's one of the things that, especially living in Miami, living in Mississippi, you see the vast differences.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
crazy. When I left Mississippi in 2012, I had no desires of moving back here to live. Maybe come back to visit family, but no desires to come back to live. So when
Yeah.
I actually left or was in the process of leaving Miami to come back to Mississippi, my friends down there were like, dude, what's wrong with you? Why the heck would you leave Miami and go back to Mississippi? But when you think about it, and I'm sure you can attest to this as well, when
Mhm.
you have more of a vast array of experiences from outside of Mississippi, you
Mhm.
develop a certain level of professionalism, a certain level of competence from outside of Mississippi in an environment like Miami. It makes you so much of a higher asset when you do come back here. Then it's just all about how do I incorporate myself into the right places to where they
Right.
see that
Right.
value and they're willing to compensate me for that
Right.
value. And that's
Mhm.
one of the sad things. I forget who I was speaking to the other day, but on a regular basis, I'll say less than 3 to 4% of my clientele is ever in Mississippi. The
Mhm.
vast
Yeah.
majority of those that I work with are in some of the larger cities outside. I'm, on the East Coast, out in Texas, so on and so forth. It's because of the mindset here.
Yeah.
So many people are complacent in being who they were back in the 1990s, of being who they were when they finished
Yeah.
high school and not really growing. There's a saying by a gentleman by the name of Les Brown, or maybe it was Miles Monroe that said it first, that the graveyard is the richest place in the world because that's where
Mm.
all the ideas,
Mm.
the unlived potential is sitting
Mm.
up or lying up in the graveyard. And there's
Yeah.
some wealthy graveyards in Mississippi because
Yeah.
so much untapped potential just goes
Yeah.
untapped. And
Yeah.
then when they see people like yourself, people like myself, we get ostracized initially because that's weird. Like, we don't do that around here. Like, why? Until we start to make the catch, certain strides, and they're like, dang, like, can I hop on that boat with you? Well, I mean,
Yeah.
the boat is kind of out there offshore now. Can you swim? Can you swim and catch up? So, so living here in Mississippi, um, what? Just looking at the next, we'll say, 5 to 10 years of your career, Do you foresee yourself continuing to primarily practice, and or work here in Mississippi, or do you have any aspirations of spreading out, scaling, and doing a predominant amount of your work outside of the state? What does that look like for you?
So that's a good question because I don't feel that a lot of my work is not in Mississippi, to be honest with you. A lot of my physical appearances in Mississippi because I'm physically here. But really, I like you're saying, and it's no shade to Mississippi. I think Mississippi is beautiful. It has a beautiful culture. You know, the people are amazingly nice. You have a different perspective of Miami than I do. I say Miami people are not nice at
Yeah.
all. When I go back, I'll be wanting to fight, and I'm like, I got kids now. I can't do this. But Mississippi people are so sweet. They're just so sweet people. But I do realize that I had like even my diaspora nights, it felt like a fight. And I could not do that on my own. It's I think like in certain if you're a certain kind of person, like you can't do certain things on your own. Like you have to partner with the people who have the face and the reputation
Exactly.
in the community. And I don't know if I could do that too much. So I think what my work would look like as far as like travel, I will try, but even in Mississippi, like I've talked to a lot of people who I always talk about travel and they're like, yeah, I never been out of the country. I don't have a passport. I'm like, we need to do that. So I feel like where I'm gonna do local travel, but I'm also gonna be specialized in the Caribbean. So I think a lot of the people might have to just come from outside into the bigger areas. So I have no problem going to other bigger cities. Like Miami is like my home and it's a very big place for tourism, and that's somewhere that I want to specialize in as well. Because I know a lot of people here would go there because they don't have a passport. They'll go to Miami and enjoy that. So yeah, I don't really foresee where I'm going. I don't really see me starting in Mississippi as a. It's no shade. It's just.
Trust me, I know exactly what you mean, and that's the thing. That's one of the beauties about technology is we can
Hmm.
actually live here and
Yeah.
save when it comes to the cost of living, but
Yeah.
still have our clients in other areas and travel to other areas
Yeah.
because we have a little extra, disposable income compared to if we were living in some of those areas. Because I tell you,
Hmm.
when I moved from Miami to here, I was paying literally a third in rent and
Mm.
my space was almost double. So more space,
Yeah.
about a third the cost.
Yeah.
so
That is the
you
beauty.
know, yeah, definitely. And I there's so much about Mississippi that I have to love because this is where I was born and raised. And I have my critiques all the time when it comes to Mississippi, but I was doing a podcast from 2020 to 2023,
Hmm.
and one of my guests was a guy by the name of why am I drawing a blank? Jeff Johnson. Jeff Johnson from Man Cave on BET. He's interviewed a couple different presidents. Like he was pretty big name. Anyways, we were speaking about just where you're from, and I was saying some things about Mississippi, a little sideways because I was just being real. And he said we have to stop shitting on where we're from
Yeah.
because you
Hmm.
got to think about like this made you to who you are.
Hmm.
Find all the beauty in where you're from. Help elevate the beauty.
Right.
The things that may not be so beautiful, use your influence. Use whatever you have to offer to help bring it up.
Yeah.
And shortly after that, after interviewing him, I was like, you know what? I want to put together an initiative to really help elevate Mississippi and specifically,
Oh.
the financial space. But the thing is, like you said, you have to connect with those who are kind of more deeply entrenched in certain areas.
Mm.
Now, me, I ain't hood. I'm not from the hood. I'm not from the inner city. Like I'm from the rural area, like outside of town. So I have to kind of, to a certain degree, drop into like when I was on a football field. That's probably the most hood you can ever find me because I get aggressive. I get, I can get a little, a little, yeah, you know what I mean. But
Hmm.
to touch some of these communities, like you say, you have to partner with someone that kind of has the authority, has the influence in that
Yeah.
space already. They see the value that you have. They co-sign you to come in and do what
Hmm.
what they feel the community needs. So, like the vast majority of my work is outside of Mississippi when it comes to individualized work.
Nice. Yeah.
But when it
Right.
comes to institutionalized work, that's where I partner with like University of
Mhm.
Southern Miss, where I partner
Mhm.
with Mississippi Behavioral Health Learning Network. So I partner with the institutional entities here. For one, they have the money, they have the funding, to pay for my
Yeah.
services, and they're at the level to where they're trying to also elevate
Mhm.
mindsets. So there's nothing wrong with living in Mississippi and serving at a certain capacity here, but also understanding that if you want to take care of yourself financially, you've got to utilize technology, you've got to venture
Yeah.
outside of the space. So as we get ready to wind down, I want you to paint a picture for me, for the audience. I'm gonna close my eyes while you paint this picture because I want to see it. I want to feel like I'm in it with you. So, 5 years down the line, success is inevitable. Failure is impossible. What does your life look like? What are you doing? Who are you? Where are you living? Like, give us that picture. I want to see it. I want to. I
Mm.
want to be in it.
Oh, that's easy. 5 years? Oh man. 5 years I will be a digital nomad. Low key. I don't think I'll be living in Mississippi, but I would definitely have my home in Jamaica. That is home for me. I would have invested in my grandparents' home, which is a gift because their home is still around. I would invest in their home. Like I would have my own home there. I would have a retreat center there where people do retreats all the time, and so I would have my own retreat center, my own tourism uh what you call it brand where people come to Jamaica not just to come to the resort and just be like, oh no, you're coming and you're going to meet the Rastafarian people. You're gonna go by the riverside, you're gonna have real authentic Jamaican food, you're gonna understand the history, you're gonna so all of that. But also most importantly, my work is going to there's going to be a heavy philanthropy aspect of my work where I'm going to support the maternal health culture in Jamaica and the Caribbean, because in Mississippi, I've done a lot of work in maternal health. It's bad, but the Caribbean, it's worse. At least Jamaica, it's worse. Because at least in Mississippi, there are places like Mississippi Public Health and Jackson Safer Birth. They have these initiatives that are funded, but in Jamaica, they don't really have that. So I would do that. I would be investing in initiatives for climate change and climate crisis. Like I would be very much in initiatives. I don't know if that will change 5 years from now, but that's where I started at 15 years old. At 15 years old, what I wanted to do, I wanted to create an emergency medical system for Jamaica because I realized when I was going there, I'm like, what happens if you get shot? Like, what happens? And I always just throw them in the car. I'm like, throw them in the car. What you mean? They have ambulances, guys. They have ambulances. But back when I was coming up as a kid, I never saw like we saw the see the ambulance. I never saw that. I was like, what happened? They would throw him in the car and take him to the hospital. I'm like, no, we need an emergency medical system. So I think I would be investing in other businesses, of course, to generate wealth, to generate income, so that I'm investing in economic support for Jamaica and the Caribbean. That's all I care about. That's all I care about.
Like, oh, I actually have a mic. Like, this is my daughter's mic. Nah, I'm not rocking the pink mic. It's
Oh,
cute, but
so cute.
yes, like, see how you know? Like, you didn't have to sit
Yeah,
there and think about it. So, all of
yeah.
my audience who's listening, if you have something you want to do in life, you need to be able to spout it off the top of your head like that. It needs to be in you so that
Hmm.
if you have the person before you that's listening to your story that says, oh my goodness, I want to fund a project just like that, they're ready to fund your project because you're not hesitant about it. You're
Hmm.
confident about what you want to do. You articulate it well. You have to be able to do that.
Hmm.
So I'm glad that you shared that with me. There's some things that you mentioned that I want to be able to add value to at one capacity or another. Now, when I travel to another country, I don't like to do the whole American tourist experience.
Yeah.
I don't want to live in a hotel. I don't
Right.
like I want to
Mhm.
learn as much as I can of your native language, all of the
Same.
cultural things that I can. I want to be to where when I leave, people
Mhm.
can't tell if I'm supposed to live there or not. Like that's how I was
That's awesome.
when I went to Costa Rica.
Mhm.
Like I dress the way the locals dress. I go to their stores, dress the way that they dress. I really learned the language. Obviously, I had some years practicing that language to be different.
Mhm.
Learning Patois, but
Mhm.
I want to put my foot in it one way or another of helping you bring some of that to fruition. But with that being said, thank you, thank you, thank you for joining us today. We're going to have to find one of these areas that you start to kind of put the wheels on and drive
Mhm.
forward and come back, bring you back and talk about what that progress looks like. So,
Yay.
is there anything or are there any things, any activities coming up that you want to share with the people? Any product that you want to promote? Talk to us now about it.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much, Brian, for allowing me to come and chat with your audience. Hope it was helpful. Currently, I there's a lot going on. So I have my monthly diaspora for those who really want to hear the music, dance, enjoy. But also, we're having a networking event called the Sisterhood Exchange in Jackson, Mississippi. So if you have listeners who are in Jackson, this is for women. This is a self care networking night for women in business or women aspire to be in business because we often hear whenever I'm in the business space, it always feels like stifling, kind of like, oh, we got to be like this.
Mm-hmm.
But no, like that's why a lot of people who are entrepreneurs and business leaders they suffer from burnout because there's not a heavy emphasis on self-care. So we're doing that. We want to cultivate a community of women in business to really come together, band together, because when women do the work, we go to work. So that is the thing that I want people to know about and join us in.
Perfect. So I just dropped it onto the screen. You guys can take a look at that, write it
Yeah.
down, take notes, and you can send it over to me in a text so I
Yeah.
can make sure I put it in the description of the YouTube video, and drop it into the description of the Facebook after we finish. But keep doing what you're doing. There's like I'm different. And I don't vibe with just everybody. Like you
Mhm.
gotta be a certain caliber person for me to want to reach out to you and say, hey, come and share this space with me. And you're definitely one of those individuals. And I've seen that in you for the longest. So please keep being you. Don't
Thank
allow
you.
any external forces to make you feel like you should go in a different direction.
Yeah.
There's only one of these things that we get called a life, and
Mm.
we shouldn't live it in any other person's perspective or viewpoint. We should look in the mirror every single day and say, this is the life that I desire. And when you look in that mirror again at the nighttime, I live the life that I desire. So keep doing
Yeah.
you. It's an honor to know you. I look forward to having you here
Aw,
again.
thank you. It's an honor to know you too.
Definitely. So I'm gonna drop you backstage real quick. Close out with the audience. Then I'm gonna come and close out with you, and that's gonna be an afternoon for us. All right. So first off, pardon my coughing. I've been trying to get over this thing for the last 3 4 days or so, but it is what it is. So guys, definitely reach out to Nikita if you're in the Jackson, Mississippi area. Check out her Sisterhood Exchange community because there's when women go in, y'all be going in. Y'all be going in. So y'all need to make sure y'all take care of yourselves because there's a lot of individuals that depend on y'all to help take care of them. So definitely make sure you reach out. Reach out to me if you need that introduction, and we'll make that happen. But that's going to be a wrap for today. We'll be back here next week. As of right now, I think I have 3 people on the books for next week. But we're bringing the value, guys. Legacy dialogues. Make sure you get some information that can help you learn what you can do to take the steps towards creating your legacy because your legacy begins now.